Turkmenistan is a country in Central Asia, bordered by Kazakhstan to the northwest, Uzbekistan to the north and east, Afghanistan to the southeast, Iran to the south and southwest, and the Caspian Sea to the west. Turkmenistan has been at the crossroads of civilizations for centuries. In medieval times, Merv was one of the great cities of the Islamic world, and an important stop on the Silk Road, a caravan route used for trade with China until the mid-15th century. Annexed by the Russian Empire in 1881, Turkmenistan later figured prominently in the anti-Bolshevik movement in Central Asia. In 1924, Turkmenistan became a constituent republic of the Soviet Union. Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic. It became independent upon the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Turkmenistan possesses the world's fourth largest reserves of natural gas resources. Most of the country is covered by the Karakum Desert. Since 1993, citizens have received government-provided electricity, water and natural gas free of charge. Turkmenistan was ruled by President for life Saparmurat Niyazov until his death in 2006. Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov was elected president in 2007. According to Human Rights Watch, Turkmenistan remains one of the world's most repressive countries. The country is virtually closed to independent scrutiny, media and religious freedoms are subject to draconian restrictions, and human rights defenders and other activists face the constant threat of government reprisal. President Berdimuhamedov promotes a personality cult in which he, his relatives, and associates enjoy unlimited power and total control over all aspects of public life. History. In the 8th century AD, Turkic-speaking Oghuz tribes moved from Mongolia into present-day Central Asia, part of a powerful confederation of tribes. These Oghuz formed the ethnic basis of the modern Turkmen population. In the 10th century, the name Turkmen was first applied to Oghuz groups that accepted Islam and began to occupy present-day Turkmenistan. There they were under the dominion of the Seljuk Empire, which was composed of Oghuz groups living in present-day Iran and Turkmenistan. Turkmen soldiers in the service of the empire played an important role in the spreading of Turkic culture when they migrated westward into present-day Azerbaijan and eastern Turkey. In the 12th century, Turkmen and other tribes overthrew the Seljuk Empire. In the next century, the Mongols took over the more northern lands where the Turkmens had settled, scattering the Turkmens southward and contributing to the formation of new tribal groups. The 16th and 18th centuries saw a series of splits and confederations among the nomadic Turkmen tribes, who remained staunchly independent and inspired fear in their neighbors. By the 16th century, most of those tribes were under the nominal control of two sedentary Uzbek Khanates, Khiva and Bukhara. Turkmen soldiers were an important element of the Uzbek militaries of this period. In the 19th century, raids and rebellions by the Yomud Turkmen group resulted in that group's dispersal by the Uzbek rulers. According to Paula Spicard, prior to the Russian conquest, the Turkmen were known and feared for their involvement in the Central Asian slave trade. Russian forces began occupying Turkmen territory late in the 19th century. From their Caspian Sea base at Krasnovodsk, the Russians eventually overcame the Uzbek Khanates. In 1881, the last significant resistance in Turkmen territory was crushed at the Battle of Gök-Tepe, and shortly thereafter Turkmenistan was annexed, together with adjoining Uzbek territory, into the Russian Empire. In 1916, the Russian Empire's participation in World War I resonated in Turkmenistan, as an anti-conscription revolt swept most of Russian Central Asia. Although the Russian Revolution of 1917 had little direct impact, in the 1920s Turkmen forces joined Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and Uzbeks in the so-called Basmachi rebellion against the rule of the newly formed Soviet Union. In 1924, the Turkmen Soviet Socialist Republic was formed from the Tsarist province of Transcaspia. By the late 1930s, Soviet reorganization of agriculture had destroyed what remained of the nomadic lifestyle in Turkmenistan, and Moscow controlled political life. The Ashgabat earthquake of 1948 killed over 110,000 people, amounting to two-thirds of the city's population. During the next half-century, Turkmenistan played its designated economic role within the Soviet Union and remained outside the course of major world events. Even the major liberalization movement that shook Russia in the late 1980s had little impact. However, in 1990 the Supreme Soviet of Turkmenistan declared sovereignty as a nationalist response to perceived exploitation by Moscow. Although Turkmenistan was ill-prepared for independence and communist leader Sapamurad Niyazov preferred to preserve the Soviet Union. In October 1991 the fragmentation of that entity forced him to call a national referendum that approved independence. After independence, Niyazov continued as Turkmenistan's chief of state, replacing communism with a unique brand of independent nationalism reinforced by a pervasive cult of personality. A 1994 referendum and legislation in 1999 abolished further requirements for the president to stand for re-election, making him effectively president for life. During his tenure, Niyazov conducted frequent purges of public officials and abolished organizations deemed threatening. Throughout the post-Soviet era, Turkmenistan has taken a neutral position on almost all international issues. Niyazov eschewed membership in regional organizations such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and in the late 1990s he maintained relations with the Taliban and its chief opponent in Afghanistan, the Northern Alliance. He offered limited support to the military campaign against the Taliban following the 11th of September 2001 attacks. In 2002, an alleged assassination attempt against Niyazov led to a new wave of security restrictions, dismissals of government officials, and restrictions placed on the media. Niyazov accused exiled former Foreign Minister Boris Sheikh Muradov of having planned the attack. Between 2002 and 2004, serious tension arose between Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan because of bilateral disputes and Niyazov's implication that Uzbekistan had a role in the 2002 assassination attempt. In 2004, a series of bilateral treaties restored friendly relations. In the parliamentary elections of December 2004 and January 2005, only Niyazov's party was represented, and no international monitors participated. In 2005, Niyazov exercised his dictatorial power by closing all hospitals outside Ashgabat and all rural libraries. The year 2006 saw intensification of the trends of arbitrary policy changes, shuffling of top officials, diminishing economic output outside the oil and gas sector, and isolation from regional and world organizations. China was among a very few nations to whom Turkmenistan made significant overtures. The sudden death of Niyazov at the end of 2006 left a complete vacuum of power, as his cult of personality, compared to that of former President Kim Il-sung of North Korea, had precluded the naming of a successor. Deputy Prime Minister Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedow, who was named interim head of government, won the special presidential election held in early February 2007. He was re-elected in 2012 with 97% of the vote. Politics. After 69 years as part of the Soviet Union, Turkmenistan declared its independence on the 27th of October 1991. President for life Sapamurad Niyazov, a former bureaucrat of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, ruled Turkmenistan from 1985, when he became head of the Communist Party of the Turkmen SSR, until his death in 2006. He retained absolute control over the country after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. On 28 December 1999, Niyazov was declared president for life of Turkmenistan by the Mejlis. which itself had taken office a week earlier in elections that included only candidates hand-picked by President Niyaziv. No opposition candidates were allowed. Since the December 2006 death of Niyaziv, Turkmenistan's leadership has made tentative moves to open up the country. His successor, President Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, repealed some of Niyaziv's most idiosyncratic policies, including banning opera and the circus for being insufficiently Turkmen. In education, Berdimuhamedov's government increased basic education to 10 years from 9 years, and higher education was extended from 4 years to 5. It also increased contacts with the West, which is eager for access to the country's natural gas riches. The politics of Turkmenistan take place in the framework of a presidential republic, with the president both head of state and head of government. Under Niyaziv, Turkmenistan had a single-party system. However, in September 2008, the People's Council unanimously passed a resolution adopting a new constitution. The latter resulted in the abolition of the council and a significant increase in the size of parliament in December 2008, and also permits the formation of multiple political parties. The former Communist Party, now known as the Democratic Party of Turkmenistan, is the dominant party. The second party, the Party of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs, was established in August 2012. Political gatherings are illegal unless government-sanctioned. In 2013, the first multi-party parliamentary elections were held in Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan was a single-party state from 1991 to 2012. However, the 2013 elections were widely seen as mere window dressing. In practice, all parties in parliament operate jointly under the direction of the DPT. There are no true opposition parties in the Turkmenistani parliament. Foreign relations. Turkmenistan's declaration of permanent neutrality was formally recognized by the United Nations in 1995. Former President Saparmurat Niyaziv stated that the neutrality would prevent Turkmenistan from participating in multinational defense organizations, but allows military assistance. Its neutral foreign policy has an important place in the country's constitution. Turkmenistan has diplomatic relations with 132 countries. Human rights. Turkmenistan has been widely criticized for human rights abuses and has imposed severe restrictions on foreign travel for its citizens. Discrimination against the country's ethnic minorities remains in practice. Universities have been encouraged to reject applicants with non-Turkmen surnames, especially ethnic Russians. It is forbidden to teach the customs and language of the Baloch, an ethnic minority. The same happens to Uzbeks, though the Uzbek language was formerly taught in some national schools. According to Reporters Without Borders' 2014 World Press Freedom Index, Turkmenistan had the third worst press freedom conditions in the world, just before North Korea and Eritrea. It is considered to be one of the 10 most censored countries. Each broadcast under Niyaziv began with a pledge that the broadcaster's tongue will shrivel if he slanders the country, flag, or president. Restrictions on free and open communication. Despite the launch of Turkmenistan's first communication satellite, Turkmensat-1, in April 2015, the Turkmen government banned all satellite dishes in Turkmenistan the same month. The statement issued by the government indicated that all existing satellite dishes would have to be removed or destroyed, despite the communications receiving antennas having been legally installed since 1995, in an effort by the government to fully block access of the population to many hundreds of independent international media outlets which are currently accessible in the country only through satellite dishes, including all leading international news channels in different languages. The main target of this campaign is Radio Azatalik, the Turkmen language service of Radio Liberty, Free Europe. It is the only independent source of information about Turkmenistan and the world in the Turkmen language and is widely listened to in the country. Administrative divisions. Turkmenistan is divided into 5 provinces or vilayatlar and 1 capital city district. The provinces are subdivided into districts, which may be either counties or cities. According to the Constitution of Turkmenistan, some cities may have the status of vilayet or etrap. Climate. The Karakum Desert is one of the driest deserts in the world. Some places have an average annual precipitation of only 12 millimeters. The highest temperature recorded in Ashgabat is 48.0 degrees Celsius, and Kirki, an extreme inland city located on the banks of the Amudaya River, recorded 51.7 degrees Celsius in July 1983, although this value is unofficial. 50.1 degrees Celsius is the highest temperature recorded at Repetek Reserve, recognized as the highest temperature ever recorded in the whole former Soviet Union. Geography. At 488,100 square kilometers, Turkmenistan is the world's 52nd largest country. It is slightly smaller than Spain and somewhat larger than the U.S. state of California. It lies between latitudes 35 degrees and 43 degrees north, and longitudes 52 degrees and 67 degrees east. Over 80% of the country is covered by the Karakum Desert. The center of the country is dominated by the Turan Depression and the Karakum Desert. The Kopet Dag Range, along the southwestern border, reaches 2,912 meters at Kuy-Rize. The Great Balkan Range in the west of the country and the Koytan Dag Range on the southeastern border with Uzbekistan are the only other significant elevations. The Great Balkan Range rises to 1,880 meters at Mount Arlan, and the highest summit in Turkmenistan is Iribaba in the Kugatang Range, 3,137 meters. Rivers include the Amudaya, the Murgab, and the Tejen. The climate is mostly arid subtropical desert, with little rainfall. Winters are mild and dry, with most precipitation falling between January and May. The area of the country with the heaviest precipitation is the Kopet Dag Range. The Turkmen's shore along the Caspian Sea is 1,768 kilometers long. The Caspian Sea is entirely landlocked, with no natural access to the ocean, although the Volga-Don Canal allows shipping access to and from the Black Sea. The major cities include Ashgabat, Turkmenbati and Asaguz.